Hello everyone, welcome to another Egbon Tech tutorial. In today's video, we are going to learn how to build a modern dashboard from scratch using just HTML and CSS. I'm not going to waste much of your time, I'm just going to show you what you are going to learn in this video. First of all, in this video, you're going to learn how to create this header right here. You're just going to have these icons, this image, and also this logo right here. You learn how to create this sidebar right here. It's going to be positioned at the left hand side of this dashboard. You learn how to create this statistics section right here, where each stat is going to show the statistics of the dashboard. These are going to be total users, total admins, total products, and total profit. You're also going to learn how to create this modern table right here that's going to contain the recent orders. Okay, we're not going to stop there. We're going to ensure that this dashboard is fully responsive. Whatever device we view this dashboard, we'll take this to responsive. Now, whatever device we view this dashboard on is going to be fully responsive. If you view this on iPhone 12, it's going to be responsive. If you view this on a tablet or use Next Up, it's still going to be responsive. And also for mobile devices, for devices like iPhone 12 Pro, when you are viewing the dashboard, you can click on this hamburger menu icon to actually slide up the left side, but you can click on it again to slide it back in. And also the table for small screen device, you'll be able to scroll through the tables to see the data of the table better. Now, if you're excited about this project, smash the like button and leave a comment below. It's going to help the YouTube algorithm to push this content to more people just like you who are going to find this helpful, and also basically consider it as a very little way of you supporting the channel. And lastly, if you've not subscribed, ensure you do that and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on the next project we're going to build together on this channel. Let's dive into it. So I already have this boiler code set up inside my index.html file, and inside this file I have this link right here, this link that's linking this index.html file to this style.css file. Inside this style.css file up here, we are basically just importing Google fonts from Google, and we are applying that font to our web page as sans-serif as the fallback font family. And also we have these root variables of colors right here that we're going to make use of in this project. And also we have a folder that just have one image in there, image.jpg. Now for this image, you can use any image you want. Okay, so I'll just close up this left sidebar. Now go to my index.html file. Now before we can start actually working on this dashboard, first of all we have to get Font Awesome to our project, because we are going to make use of lots of icons in this project. Okay, so we have to get Font Awesome. So I'll go to my browser, I'll search for cdnjs. I'll click on that, cdnjs.com. I'll just go to cdnjs.com. Right here, I'm going to search for the CDN link I want. I'll search for Font Awesome CDN link, which is this first one right here. I'll just click on this first one. It's going to bring me right here, and we can copy the HTML code for the very first one right here. This all.min.css. I'll copy the HTML tag for this one. I'll add to my project. Now in my header tag, I'll just paste that right here. Okay, so with that, we have Font Awesome in our project. We can start actually working on this project. So first of all, we're going to create a div here. This div is going to have a class of container, and this is the div that's going to wrap around everything inside this web page. Okay, inside this div container, I'm going to create two items. First of all, I'll create a header tag, and this header is going to serve as our header. That's basically our nav bar. Then after that, we're going to have a div that's going to have a class of content area. First of all, we're going to work on the header. Okay, so inside this header, I'm going to have a div. This div is going to have a class of header left, and after that we're going to have another div. This div is going to have a class of header right. Inside this header left, we're going to have a div that's going to have a class of logo, and inside this div, first of all, I'm going to have a div that's going to have a class of icon container, and inside this icon container div, we're going to actually add our first icon, which is going to have a class of bar chart. After this icon container div, I'm going to have a span. I'm simply going to say dash board. And inside the header right, we're going to have an anchor tag in there, which is not going to lead anywhere. And it's going to have an icon that's going to have a class of bars. I'll just drag that down multiple times. 1, 2, This second one is going to have a class of fastFar bell, and the last one is going to have a class of fastFar cog. Then finally, in the image, right, you're going to have an image right there, and this image is going to point into the images folder, and it's going to point to our image.jpg file. Then the alt text simply going to say profile pic. I'll save that. Now to actually run this application, just click on Go Live because I have Visual Studio Go Live server extension installed in my Visual Studio Code. So I just click on Go Live. Now this is going to open up this project, and you can see all the items we just added right here, including this large humongous image. Okay, so let's start actually applying styles to the items of the header. So I head to my style.css file, and before we do anything, first of all, I want to give the body a background color of light gray. Okay, after that, I'm going to apply a general style. I want all the anchor tag to have a text decoration of none. That way, any anchor tag we add to this web page is going to have a text decoration of none. There's not going to be any underline on any of the anchor tags. So now we can actually start styling the header. First of all, I'll target the image. Okay, so the image is really large right now. So down here, I'm going to say header dot. I'll just copy that header right class. I'll copy this header right class. I'll paste that right here. I'll just target the image in there. I'll give the image a width of 30 pixels, a height of 30 pixels, border radius, I'll give it 50%. I want it to be circular. And lastly, I'll give it an object fit of cover. I'll save that. Now when I head back to the web page, you can see that this image is completely styled. Now that this image is completely styled, it's going to make it easy for us to actually style the other elements of the header. Okay, so now we can target the header. I'll just go up here, I'll say header. I'll give the header a display. I'll give it flex because I want all the items in the header to be arranged horizontally, side by side, okay, in a flex display. I'll give it an align items of center to ensure the items are centered vertically. Then justify content. I want space between. Sorry, not space around. I want space between. I'll save that. When I head back to the web page, I notice that the left hand side of the items are the left hand side, while the right hand side are the extreme end at the right hand side. That's because we add a justify content of space between to this flex container. Now we don't want the items to get to the absolute edges, okay? So we're going to add a padding to this header at the left and right. So I give this header a padding. Top and bottom is going to have a padding of 0, left and right a padding of 1%. I'll save that. Now when I head back to the web page, you're going to notice that there's now a padding on the left hand side and on the right hand side of this header. Next, I'm going to give this header a position of fixed. I want it to be positioned on the top of the web page. So I'll give it a top of 0, left of 0, and I'll give it a width of 100%. I'll also give it a background color of white, a height of 55 pixels. We'll give it a border bottom of 1 pixel, solid border color, and a z-index of 500. So it's not going to be easy for any other items to actually overlap this header. So when I go back to the web, you can see that header right here with that border right here and the background of white. Alright, cool. So next, we're going to focus on styling the items at the left hand side of the header. Okay, so I'll go back to my style.css file. Down here, I'm going to say header dot header left dot logo. Okay, right now I'm targeting this class right here, this logo class right here. Okay, this logo class that wraps around this div, this icon container div, and this span, this dashboard span. So I'll give them a display of flex. Align items, I'll use center. Then I'm going to add a gap of 5 pixels between the items. Next, I'll style the span, so I'll just copy this. I'll paste that underneath here. I'll just target the span inside this logo container. I'll give it a font size of 1.2 rem, a font width of 600, and lastly a color of dark green, which is one of our variable colors up here. Okay, this dark gray right here, this dark gray color. Now I'm going to target the icon container, so I'll just copy this. I'll paste that underneath here. I'll just target the icon container class. So I'll just copy that class from my index.html file. I'll just copy this. I'll add to my style.css file. I'll paste that right here. I'll give this a background color of primary color, a color of white. We'll give it a width of 30 pixels, a height of 30 pixels, and a border radius of 50%. Because I want it to actually be circular. I'll save that. And when we head back to the web page, you can see these items are styled. The span is styled and the icon container is styled, but the icon inside the icon container is not actually at the center. So let's ensure it's at the center. So what we are going to do, we just give it a grid display of grid. Then we'll place the items, we'll just give it center. I'll save that. When I head back to the web, you can see that these actually positioned at the center of the icon container. Alright, cool. So next, we're going to apply styles to the items on the right hand side of the header. So I'll go to my style CSS file. I'll just copy this. I'll paste that up here. I'll give this a display of flex. Align items, we're going to give it center. Then we're going to add a gap between the items, a gap of 10 pixels. I'll save that. Now when I head back to the web page, you can see that these items are now arranged in a flex display and vertically they are now actually centered. Okay, so now we can actually start styling the individual icon container. So I'll just copy this, I'll paste that underneath here. Then I'll target the icon container class inside this header right. I'm going to give them a width of 35 pixels, a height of 35 pixels, a border of 1 pixel solid border color, a color of dark gray, and lastly a cursor of pointer. I'll save that. Now when I head back to the web page, the styles are not being applied. Why is styles not applied? Header right icon container. Okay, that's because we didn't add a class of icon container here. Okay, so let's do that. So I'll give each of the anchor tag a class of icon container. Then I'll just copy this class, Then I'll paste that here. I'll save that. Now when I head back to the web page, you see those styles have been applied to them or are here. Alright, cool. Now we have to actually ensure these icons are at the center of your container. So what we are going to do, we'll give this container a display. We'll give it grid. Place items. We are going to use center. I'll save that. When I head back to the web page, you can see they're actually positioned at the center of their container. Alright, cool. So now that we are done with the header, we're going to start working on the content area. Remember that we divided this into two sections. We have the header, this header right here. I'll just wrap this up, and then we have the content area. Now the content area is going to be what's going to contain this left sidebar. It's going to fix at the left hand side of the web page, and also it's going to contain these items right here at the main content. So let's start actually working on that. So I'll go back to my index.html file. Now this content area is going to have two items in it. First of all, it's going to have a sidebar. It's going to have a class of sidebar, and after there's going to have a main. There's going to have a class of main contents. So first of all, we want the sidebar to be positioned on the left hand side of the web page. So let's do that. So I'll just copy this. Alright, to my style of CSS file. I'll paste that underneath here. I'll give this a position. I'll give it fixed. I'll give it a left of 0, a top of 0, and lastly, I'm going to give it a width of 250 pixels. Let's just add a background color so we can try to see that. I'll give this a background color of red. I'll save that. Now when I head back to the web page, just go back to the web page, and I cannot actually see the left side, but that's because we've given it a width property, but we haven't given it a height property. Now for the height of the sidebar, I want to give the sidebar a height of 100 VH minus the height of the header. Remember that in our final project, you're going to notice that after our header, we're going to have our sidebar. Okay, so we want to give the sidebar a height of 100 VH, but we want to also subtract the height of the header. So what we are going to do, we are going to give this a height of, we're going to calculate the height 100 VH, then we're going to subtract the height we give to our header, which is I think we gave it a height of 55 pixels. Okay, I'll save that. I want to head back to the web page. I'll just go back to our project. You can see the left sidebar right here. but we have a problem. The left sidebar is starting at the top of the web page. Remember that this left sidebar now has a position of fixed. It's no longer following the document flow. Normally, when an element is in a document flow, it's going to be positioned after the previous elements. This element is supposed to be positioned after this header, okay? But now, since this sidebar now has a position of fixed, it's no longer in the document flow, which means it's going to start at the top of the web page, regardless of where this header is positioned, okay? So what we are going to do is that we want to give this a margin top of 55 pixels. That way, it's going to start after the header. So we're going to give this a margin top. We give it 55 pixels. I'll save that. And when I head back, you notice that it's going to stretch to the bottom. That's because we now gave it a height of 55 pixels, which means the left sidebar is going to start after the header, then it's going to extend to the bottom right here. All right, cool. So next, we're going to get the layout for our main content. So I'll go back to the web page. I'll just copy this. I'll paste that right here. I'll give the main content a margin top of 55 pixels. I'll give it a height similar to the height we give to our left sidebar, 100 VH minus the height of the header. I'll give it a background color of blue so you can see it. Then lastly, we're going to add a width of 100%. I'm basically telling the main content to occupy 100% of its content. I'll save that. Now when I head back to the web page, you're going to see that this main content is now in the web page. Now everything seems to be perfect, but we have a problem. Now the problem we have is that when I get rid of this left sidebar, let me just get rid of this left sidebar. I'll get rid of this left sidebar. You're going to notice that the main content is going to extend to the end right here. We don't want that. We want the main content to start after the left sidebar. So what we are going to do, we're going to give this main content a margin left. Okay, I'll just uncomment this. Now we're going to give the main content a margin left of 250 pixels. I'll save that. And when we return back to the web page, you're going to notice now we now have a margin left right here, but we cannot actually see that margin left. So I'll just get rid of the left sidebar for now. I'll just comment this off. I'll save that. And when I head back to the web, you can see we now have a margin left of 250 pixels. Okay, the main content is now going to start after the left sidebar. All right, cool. But we actually have another problem. You can see that we can actually scroll through this right here. Okay, so we don't want the overflow of this content area to actually be scrollable. So what we are going to do, just target this content that wraps around these two items. I'll go to my style.css file up here. I'll paste that right here. I'll give this an overflow. I'll give it hidden, and that's going to ensure that this item is not actually going to overflow. When it overflows, it's actually going to be hidden. All right, cool. Now we've gotten a structure for the contents area, so let's start actually creating the left sidebar. So I'll go back to my style.css file. I'll just get rid of this background color, get rid of this. I'll get rid of this. I'll save that. Now I'll go back to my index.html file. Inside this sidebar, we're going to have an unordered list. This unordered list is going to have a class of links. And inside this unordered list, we're going to have an li tag. This li tag is going to have an anchor tag that's not going to lead anywhere for now. And inside this anchor tag, we're going to have an icon in there. This first one is going to have a class of far plus cycle. And it's also going to have a span that is simply going to say add products. I'll copy this and I'll drag this down twice. 1, 2. Okay. The next one is going to have a class. The next icon is going to have a class of far chat bar. And the span is going to say dashboard. The next icon is going to say far users. And the span is simply going to say users. I'll save that. So when I return back to the web page, you can see those items we just added right here. So let's start applying styles to them and the sidebar. So I'll go to my style.css. So I head to my style.css file. I'll give the sidebar a background color of white. I'll give it a border right of 1 pixels solid border color. I'll save that. Now you're going to notice that the sidebar now has a background color of white, and we now have this border on the right hand side of this sidebar. The items are too close to the edges, okay, so we're going to add a padding around them. So we're going to give this sidebar a padding top and bottom of 30 pixels, left and right of 10 pixels. I'll save that. And that's going to add a padding around the items in this sidebar, okay. So now we can start styling the individual links. So first of all, down here, I'm going to say dot sidebar. I'll target it on ordered list. I'll give it a list style of none. Now I'll copy that. I'll paste that underneath here. I'll target the anchor tag. I'll give each of the link a display of block, a padding top and bottom. I'll give them 15 pixels, left and right 10 pixels. Border radius, we're going to use 10 pixels. And lastly, we'll give them a color of dark gray. I'll save that. Head back to the web page. You can see these links actually stayed and they are looking good, okay. But I actually want more space between this icon and this span, okay. So I'll just copy this right here. I'll target the icon. I'll paste that underneath here. I'll just target the icon in there. I'll give the icon a margin right of 5 pixels. I'll save that. And that's going to increase the margin between this icon and the span text right here. Alright. Next, we're going to add hover property to these links, okay. So when we hover on these links, it's going to actually indicate to the user that they are hovering over these links. So I'll just go to my style.css file, copy this, I'll paste that underneath here. Then I'm going to say on hover. Now when someone hovers on the link, I want the link to have a background color of light gray and a color of primary color. I'll save that. When I head back to the web page, when I hover on this, you can see that smooth hover effect right there. Alright, cool. Now in the final project, you're going to notice that the first link is going to have its own unique styles. Okay, you can see right now that this one has a background color of purple and a color of white. So let's actually do that. So I'll go to my index.html file. I'm going to add a unique class to this one. I'll give this first one a class of first link. I'll save that. Now just copy that link. I'll head to my style.css file. Down here I'm going to say dot sidebar ul, then I'll paste that link right here. I'll give it a margin bottom of 20 pixels, a background color of primary color, and lastly we're going to give it a color of white. I'll save that. Now when I head back to the web page, you can see that this one has its own unique styles, okay. Alright, cool. Now that we understood how we created these links, I'm going to add 3 more links to these ones, okay. So down here, after this user's link, after this last link, I'll just paste 3 more links right here. Now the 3 more links are going to be for admins, the icon fast for user sheet, the other one fast for box, the name of the link product, then this one fast for history. I'll save that. Then when I go back to the web page, you can see those links we just added right here. Alright, cool. But we are not done yet. In our final project, you're going to notice that we have 2 other links at the bottom right here, okay. So let's actually add that. So I'll go to my index.html file. Now we are not just going to add it to this name. We're going to create another unordered list, okay. So down here, I'll create another unordered list. I also give this one a class of links. Then I'll just copy one of these li tag. I'll paste that right here. This one is going to be fast for question cycle, and the span text is going to be help. Now just drag this down. This one is going to be fast for send out. Then it's simply going to say log out. I'll save that. When I head back to the web page, you can see those items right here, help and logout. So what we want is that we want these help and logout links to be at the bottom. I want these other items to be at the top. So to do that, we're going to give this sidebar a display of flex. So I'll give this sidebar a display. I'll give it flex. And when I do that, when I go turn back to the web page, I'm going to notice that the items are going to be arranged side by side. Now we don't want these two another list to be arranged side by side, but we want them to be in a flex container. So what we are going to do, we're going to give them a flex direction. We're going to use column, and that's going to ensure that they are going to be in a flex direction, but they are also going to be arranged in a column basis. Okay, so then we're going to add a justify content or space between these two items. So I'll give them a justify content. I'm going to use space between. I'll save that. Now when I head back to the web, you're going to notice that these items are now at the bottom while these ones are at the top. And with that, we are actually done styling the sidebar. So next we're going to start working on the main contents. Okay, they're going to work on this stats container, then we're going to work on this table. First we're going to start with the stats container. So I'll go back to my index.html file, just wrap up this sidebar, wrap up this header and this sidebar, wrap this header up, and I'll wrap up this sidebar up. Inside this main content, I'll create a div. This div is going to have a class of stats container, and inside this div, we're going to have another div with a class of stats. Now each of these stats is going to have a div with a class of icon container, and inside this icon container we're going to have an icon. This first icon is going to have a class of far users. After this icon container div, we're going to have another div. Inside this div, we're going to have a h3 tag, which is simply going to say 3555. And after that, we're going to have a p tag, which is simply going to say total users. Now just copy this stats container. Now drag that down multiple times. 1, 2, 3. The second one is going to have a class of far user shield, and simply going to say total admins. I just make this one 35. The next one is going to be far box, and the span tag is going to say total products. I'll just use 7555 here. And the last one is going to be far dollar, and the p tag is simply going to say total profit. Then you can just make use of 3500. I'll save that. Now when I head back to the web page, I just head back to our project, and you can see those items we just added right here. First, I'm going to add a padding around this main content. Okay, so I'll give this main content. I'll just scroll down. Where's that main content? I'll give the main content a padding top and bottom of 0, left and right of 25 pixels. I'll save that. And when I head back to the web, you're going to understand this main content has a padding on the left hand side of it. Okay, it's basically having a padding on the left and the right hand side, but since we cannot actually see the padding on the right hand side, we could have items up to this point for now. And also I want to increase the margin. Okay, it's still too close to this header, so I'll give it a margin top. Instead of 55 pixels, I'll just use 85 pixels. I'll save that. Head back to the web page, and you can see that there's now a margin at the top right here. Alright, cool. So next I'm going to target the stats container. So I'll just down here, I'm going to say .main content. Then I'll copy that class from the index.html file. I just copy the stats container. I'll paste that right here. I'll give it a display of grid, a grid template columns of repeats, auto fits, min max, 250 pixels, 1 fr, and then I'll add a gap of 20 pixels. I'll save that. Head back to the web page. You can see that these items are now in a grid display. Next, I'm going to style each of the items in the stat container. So I'll go back to my style.css. So I'll just copy this. I'll paste that right here and target the stats. We'll give them a display of flex, align items of center, gap of 10 pixels, background color of white, and a border of 1 pixel solid border color. I'll save that. I head back to the web page. I can see those items we just added in the web page, but this one is actually kind of compressed and overflowing. That's because we give the content area overflow of hidden. We give the content area overflow of hidden. You know what? I'll just wrap this entire content. I'll just wrap them in a flex container. So I'll give this a display. I'll give it flex. I'll save that. Yeah, that actually fixes the problem. So I'll scroll back down and I'll add more styles to this. I'll add a padding of 20 pixels and a border radius of 10 pixels. I'll save that. Head back to the web, you can see that each of these stats are looking really good. Okay, so next we're going to style this icon container. So I'll copy this, I'll paste that underneath here. I just target the icon container class in there. I'll give it a width of 50 pixels, a height of 50 pixels, a background color of primary color, a color of white. Font size, we are going to use 1.2 rem and a border radius of 10 pixels. I'll save that. Head back to the web, you can see that this icon container are looking really good. And we have to place the icon at the center, so I'll just give it a display of grid and a place the items at the center. Save that. Head back to the web, you can see that the icon is now at the center of the icon container. So last, for this start, I'll just add styles to this paragraph tag. Okay, so I'll just copy this, I'll paste that underneath here. I'll just target the paragraph tag. I'll give the paragraph tag a color of dark gray. I'll save that. Head back to the web page, and with that we are completely done styling these stats. Okay, so next we have to start working on the table. So I'll just wrap this container up. I'll wrap this div up, this start container div. Under this div, I'll create another div. This div is going to have a class of table section. Inside this table section, first of all, we're going to have a h2 tag. We're simply going to say recent orders. After that, we're going to have another div. This div is going to have a class of table container. Inside this table container, we're going to create a table. First, we create the table head. Inside this table, we're going to create a row. Each of these rows is going to have a table header. This first one is going to be hash. I just copy that multiple. I'll just drag that down multiple times. 1, 2, 3, 4. The second one is going to be product. The third one is going to be customer. The fourth one is going to be dates. And the last one is simply going to say status. After this table head, I'll create a table body. Inside this table body, I'll create another row. Now the first data we're going to add to the first row, the first one is going to be 1. Then I add another data. This one is going to be wireless mouse. Now this table data we are actually writing here must correspond with this one. Okay, for this one, this hash simply means the number of the data. I can also write ID. Let me just make it ID so you understand. I'll say this is the ID, then it's going to correspond with this. This one is the ID of 1. Then the product, this is a product. Then the customer, you just add the customer name here. I'll just call this Jane Doe. Then the dates, I'll say 2025 June, then 21st. Then lastly, the status is going to have a span in there, and this span is simply going to say completed. This span is going to have a class of completed, and also it's going to have a class of status. Now just copy this, I'll paste that underneath here. This one is going to have an ID of 2, and it's going to be gaming keyboard. Then the name, I just use Jane Smith, use any name there. Then for the date, I can just leave it like this. Then for the status, I'll just use pending. So the class is still going to be pending. And the reason I'm adding this pending class is so that we can add unique styles to this status. Okay, So I'll say this is going to be pending. Now drag this down one last time, drag this down again. This is going to have an ID of 3 this time around. And same, the product is simply going to be USB-C cable. Therefore, the name you can just use John Smith. Therefore, the state is simply going to be cancelled. Then I'll just also use cancelled here. I'll save that. And when I head back to the web, you can see the table we just added right here. It's not really looking professional, so we have to actually add styles to it. I head to my style.css file. First of all, just target the table section. Just copy that table section class. I'll just copy this. I'll just give it a padding of 20 pixels. And that's going to add a padding around this table. Okay. Now target the h2 tag. I just copy this. I'll paste that underneath here. I just target the h2 tag in there. I'll give the h2 tag a color of dark gray and also a margin bottom of 15 pixels to add space between the h2 tag and the table itself. Next, I'll target the table container. So down here, I see dot table section dot. I'll just copy the table container class name from here. I'll just paste that right here. First of all, I'll give the table a background of white, border radius of 10 pixels, a border of 1 pixel, solid border color, and lastly, I'll give it an overflow X of auto. And this overflow X of auto I give to this table container is going to ensure that we can actually scroll through this table container for small screen devices. Okay, if the width of the container actually shrink to the screen of the mobile device or small device you are viewing the table on, we can actually scroll through it to actually see the data. Now I'll target the table, so I'll just copy this. I'll paste that in here. I'll give it a border collapse and a width of 100%. I'm going to target the header of the table, so I'll just copy this. I'll paste that underneath here. Now I'll say T head. I'll give it a background color of white. I'll copy this again. I'll paste that underneath here. Now I'll target the TD. I'll paste that right here again. I'll target the TH. Now this TD I'm targeting right now is going to be this item right here. These items right here, each of the items inside the table data. Why the TH is this ones right here, these ones that's acting as the header, this product, customer, date, and status. Okay, we'll give them a padding, top and bottom 12 pixels, left and right 15 pixels. We'll give them a text align of left, and lastly a border bottom of 1 pixel, solid #DDD. Alright, and lastly I want to add the hover effect for each of the rows, so I'll paste that right here again. I'll target each of the rows. That is a T arrow. I'll add an hover effect. When someone hovers on it, we'll give it a background color of #F5. I'll save that. I'll head back to the web page. You can see our table is actually looking really good. And when we hover on each of the rows, you can see that hover effect right there. Alright, cool. And I'll just give this table header a color of gray. I'll give it a color of, I use dark gray. I'll save that. Yeah, that's actually looking way better. I want it to be dark gray instead of black. So next, we're going to actually add unique styles to these ones. Okay, in the final project, you're going to notice that these status have their own unique style, so let's actually work on that. I'll just scroll the way down. I'll copy this. I'll paste that underneath here. Down here I'm going to say dot status, which is the status class we added to each of them. Remember, we added a class of status to each of them. Okay, so that's the class we are targeting right now. We'll give each of them a padding, top and bottom 4 pixels, left and right 10 pixels, border radius of 6 pixels, color of white and a font size of 0.9 rem and save that. Head back to the web page and we cannot actually see them. That's because we give each of the status a color of white. They are actually there, but they have a color of white. We cannot see them in this white background. So we're going to add a unique background to each of them. So down here, I'll just copy this. I'll paste that right here. I want to say dot completed. I'll give this a background color of this hair's color right here. And I'll give it a color of this hair's color right here. I'll save that. Head back to the web page and you can see that this one is now actually started. You can see right now completed. Okay, so let's do the same thing for the pending and the cancelled. So I'll just copy up to this point. I'll paste that underneath here. I'll say dot pending. Give this a background color of this hair's color right here, and I'll give it a color of this hair's color right here. And lastly, I'll just copy this and I'll paste that down one more time. And I'll target the cancelled. I'll give it a background color of this hair's color, and also I'll give it a color of this hair's color right here. I'll save that. Head back to the web page. I can see that this table is actually looking really good. Now we have completely styled up this table, I'm going to add 5 more items to this table. Okay, so after the last table row, I'll just paste 5 more table row right here. I'll save that. Head back to the web page and you can see that we have more items in this table, and with that we are done styling this table and the table is looking really good. So next we're going to work on ensuring that this dashboard is actually fully responsive. Okay, so I just go to my developer tools, I'll head to responsive, then I'll start to reduce the screen size. I'll try to trace where it starts to get unresponsive, and you are going to notice that just when it goes less than around 500 pixels, it starts to get unresponsive. So I want to create a media query for it. So the rest of the dashboard, like this header, they're already responsive. Even these items right here, they're also responsive. This stats container, they're also responsive. We'll place them in the grid display. Okay, and even the nav bar is responsive. So the only part we have to actually ensure it's responsive is going to be this sidebar right here. Okay, so what we are going to do is that for screen size less than 600 pixels, we are going to actually push this sidebar inside the left hand side, and when the user click on this hamburger menu icon, it's going to actually slide as this sidebar up. Okay, so what we are going to do is that we're going to give this sidebar, first of all, create a media query down here. I'm going to say add media max width of 600 pixels. So at 600 pixels, I want to give the sidebar a transform translate x of -90%. I'll save that. When I head back to the web, you can see that you can see parts of this sidebar right here. Okay, but we want the sidebar to be completely inside the left hand side. Okay, so we'll just give it 100%. I give it 100. Okay, that way we cannot actually see the sidebar anymore in our viewport, and also we'll reduce the margin left. Remember, we give the main content a margin left, and now we don't have this sidebar here anymore. We'll just give it a margin left of 0. So down here, I'm going to say dot main content. I'll give it a margin left. I'll give it 0, and that's going to ensure the main content is going to occupy up to the ending right here. All right, cool. Next, we're going to reduce the padding around this table. Okay, because we want the padding to occupy more width. Remember, we give the table a padding of 20 pixels. Up here, we give the table a padding of 20 pixels. We just reduce that padding. So down here, I'm going to say dot table section. I'll give it a padding of 0. I'll save that. Head back to the web page. You can notice that the table is actually going to stretch out and now occupy more width in its parent container. And we can actually scroll through the table when the screen actually reduces. When we reduce the screen further, we can actually scroll through the table. That's because we give this table. Remember, I said that when we give this table an overflow X of auto, okay, so that we can actually be able to scroll this table from small screen devices. Okay, And finally, I'll create another class up here. I'll call this sidebar open. I'll give it a transform translate x of 0. I'll save that. Now when I take this sidebar open, I add to my index.html file. I'll paste that. Where is that sidebar? I'll paste that right here. I'm going to notice that the sidebar is actually going to be open. So we are going to actually use JavaScript to actually dynamically add and remove this sidebar class. Okay, so I'll just get rid of this class for now. I'll head back down, create a script tag. Just before my body tag, I'll create a script. First of all, I want to target the sidebar as a const. I'll set it to a variable. I'll call the variable sidebar is equals to documents dot get elements. I'll just use query selector. Then I'll pass in the sidebar class dot sidebar. Then next I'll target the button. So I'll say const menu button is equals to, and I don't think I've added an ID to that menu button. Where's that icon? The icon is in our header, so I'll just, where's our header? The icon is going to be this fastfire bars, so I'll add a unique ID to this one. I'll add an ID of menu button. I'll just copy that ID name. I'll scroll all the way down. Then down here I'm going to say documents dot get element by the ID name, and I'll just pass that ID name right here. Alright, cool. Now I'm going to add an event listener to this. So I'll say menu button dot add event listener. On click of this icon, I want to actually run a function called open sidebar. Then you create that function open sidebar. All we want to do in this function is simply say sidebar dot class list dot toggle the sidebar open. That's this class we created. Okay, so you're simply just telling JavaScript to actually add and remove the class when someone clicks on that icon. I'll save that. When I head back to the web page, when I click on this, it's going to slide out. When I click on it again, it's going to slide back in. So we're going to add a transition to it so it's actually smooth. So I'll add a transition to this. I'll give it a transition of 0.6 seconds is in out, and this transition is going to be for the transform property. I'll save that. Head back to the web page. I won't click on this, it's going to slide out. Click on it, it's going to slide back in. Alright, cool. Now the final thing we're going to work on is that we don't want this hamburger icon to be shown for large screen devices. You can see right now this is actually displayed for large screen devices. We don't want it to be displayed for large screen devices. So we're going to add a unique class to it. So just go up. If I just use the ID, I'll use this ID. I'll just copy this ID. I'll add to my style CSS file. I'll give this a display of none. I'll save that, and that's going to ensure that we cannot actually see that for large screen devices, but for small screen device, I'll paste that down here again. Paste that right here. I'll add a hash at the back. Paste that right here. I'll give this display. I'll give it block. Now I have to give it grid because initially this was in a grid display. If I give it block, when I head back to the web page, I'm going to notice that the hamburger menu icon is not going to be at the center because it was initially in the grid display. For we give it a display of none. So what we are going to do, instead of display of block, we'll give it a display of grid. I'll save that. Head back to the web page. You're going to notice that we can actually see this for only small screen device. When we go to large screen device like then desktop, you're going to notice that we cannot see that. And we'll go to mobile devices. I'll use iPhone 12. You can actually see it right here. I won't click on it. It's going to open up this sidebar. Click on it again. We'll close it back up. And that is it for this project. It's a very simple dashboard project on how to create a quick dashboard. And if you enjoyed this build, smash on the like button and leave a comment below. It's going to help the YouTube algorithm to push this content to more people just like you are going to find it helpful. And basically just consider it as a little way of you supporting the channel. And lastly, if you've not subscribed, ensure you do that and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on the next project we're going to be together on this channel. I'll see you in the next video.